Welcome to the Open to Hope Show in partnership with the Compassionate Friends. I'm your host, Dr. Heidi Horsley, and I'm here today with my mom and co-host, Dr. Gloria Horsley. Hi, Mom.
Hi, Heidi.
We are going to talk today about spouse loss, and Peter Lichtenberg is no stranger to this because he's had not one spouse but two spouses die. Peter has dedicated his 30-year career to working with older adults, and he is the director of the Institute of Geriatrology at Wayne State University. While he was finishing his degree in clinical psychology, at age 25, his wife Becky died while jogging. 30 years later, his wife Susan died of breast cancer. Grieving and healing from these two great loves has been the greatest challenge of Peter's life. Welcome to our show, Peter.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's great to have you on the show, Peter, and I mean, you really give us some perspective and thought to grief and loss. Now, do you have children?
I have one with neither of those wives and two with Susan.
The early losses, that's pretty unusual. What are the percentages and chances of having a spouse die when you're 25 years old?
I think the percentages are about 0.005%.
Wow.
Honestly, less than about half of a single percent. It's just miraculously low now. And I contrasted it in my essay with the 1880s, where a gerontologist looked at the death rates then, and it wasn't low at all. It was, about a quarter of the population would die before age 25.
Peter, when you were just 25, your wife Becky was jogging and she just died? Is that what happened?
Yeah, she had an underlying condition. I guess she had subaortic stenosis, so a thickening of the heart, and it just she had a cardiac arrhythmia and died immediately.
It's so traumatic for young people to lose a spouse.
When we hear the word widower, we think of someone that's much older. And I mean, here you were only 25 years old and you found yourself with that kind of title. It must have been very strange.
It's very strange, and it's very strange for those around you, because really when they talk about it in terms of the stress literature, it's an off-time event.
Although it would be 30 years before Susan died, you were still a relatively young widower. I mean, you were only 55 years old, right?
Yes, that's exactly right. So, less than 5% of people my age currently are widowers. It's so unusual to experience it twice and to just sort of put down on paper what it's like for a widower, and sort of a no-holds-barred type of account.
What were the hardest parts of dealing with Becky's death?
I learned a lot from dealing with Becky's death. I think, in retrospect, there were two hardest parts about Becky's death. One was her family. They were not very helpful to me, and that really set a bad tone for getting going. But two was about 8 months after her death, I moved away to go on internship, and that was a huge mistake. That was just, I got down to Gainesville, Florida from Indiana, where I was in graduate school, didn't know anybody, and totally fell apart. I just basically dragged myself through that year. It was without a doubt the worst year of my life. When I kind of sensed that Susan was starting to fail, to start to rally my support system.
So you could be
so
proactive. Yeah.
Yeah, I told two of my dear friends, my college roommate and another dear friend from my profession, that I asked them, will you come stay with me? And basically, I had someone with me for about a month.
Oh, my gosh. What a great proactive thing to not get isolated again.
Yeah, it made all the difference. It really did. And I also was able to talk to my employer about that first summer for the kids to take a leave of absence. And so we took a nice 7-week trip. So those things really helped, do it right, if you will, and get yourself off to a better start. And then it's still a long haul, though.
Well, and I think you're saying something that's really important for people out there, and that is that sometimes we have to tell people what we need. I mean, you rallied the troops and said, this is what I need. Can you come in and support me? And I think that, sometimes we expect people to be psychic, and we think that they should kind of know what we want, but oftentimes they really don't know, and they sometimes even don't want to bother us.
I couldn't agree with you more, Heidi. You know, in my grief support group, the spouse support group, people were bemoaning the way neighbors treated them or friends, and I tried to gently bring up that point. You know, I don't think people really know, and I know they didn't after Becky died, and I didn't know how to say to them, hey, I really need this. Can you come through for me?
Mm-hmm.
And it was a lot easier this time to just ask. And, for example, the first few months, I knew that Sundays were going to be terrible. That was the day that Susan died. And so I had a friend of mine set up kind of a rotating schedule for people to come play ping pong with me for about half an hour or an hour at my house.
I love that.
Oh, I love that.
And that was great. I socialized a little bit, not too much. I love to play ping pong. And it really was a bridge, if you know what I mean, till I could get to a little bit more normal place.
That is such a great idea, because I'm just thinking, my mom and I have done so many shows on how grief gets trapped in your body.
Yes.
And, you know, you're moving around, and also there's not a lot of pressure just to sit there and talk. You can talk if you want, and you can focus on the ball if you want.
It's really true. Exactly.
And Peter, how old were you? You said you had children with Susan. How old were they when she died?
So my son, Thomas, was 12, and my daughter, Sophie, was 9.
So you had small, young children.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah. And, you know, Susan was sick 44 months. So when you think about it, Sophie doesn't have many memories of Susan as a fully healthy person.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, Susan was amazing. She never was in bed or anything like that. But still, you know, she was undergoing treatments, and sometimes she didn't feel well, and sometimes she didn't have hair. So Sophie knew she was sick.
But what would you tell parents out there that have surviving children that have just recently experienced the death of a parent, of their mother?
I think that I tried a few different things. One thing is that I was very good about communicating with the school way before Susan's death. And
Again, that preparation that you knew.
And Susan was too. And the day that she died, I didn't leave the hospital till I talked to both principals. My kids went to school the next day, believe it or not. They didn't. I tried to keep the routine for a while very, very much the same. And that was helpful for my children. It wouldn't be for everybody's.
Well, and what I find in working with children, and like my mom said, I worked with the 9/11 widows for 10 years. Often the children would want to stay at home to take care of the surviving parent because they were worried about them.
Yeah.
So I love that you encouraged your kids to stay in routine and to stay in school, because the research does show that that's the best way for most kids to find hope after a loss, and is to go to school and stay in routine.
And the teachers were amazing, principals too. So it was fantastic, the support they got. And another thing, in our household, Susan is still very much present.
Mm-hmm.
We don't only talk about her, but my neighbor put together these beautiful pictures, like 4 big things of pictures for the memorial service. I had them framed. I put one in each of the kids' rooms, and one in mine and one in the hallway. And it's good to have.
Now, how long has she been gone?
She has been gone 26 months.
26 months, so 2 years.
Yeah.
I love that you still keep her memory alive and that you're continuing those bonds.
Yeah, for them I am, and I keep a lot of things. I started a scholarship in Becky and Susan's name, and I keep all the descriptions of the scholarship recipients. Susan won a posthumous award from the Cancer Society, Cancer Institute, and so I have kept all that documentation. So I keep a lot of things for the kids when they're older. This is a lifetime set of experiences for them. It's never going to be over, and I just try to help them do as best they can. And right now, for them, life is pretty happy.
So what things do you think that you've done for yourself to find hope again and to start finding hope again?
I think the biggest difference, and it's kind of a difference even in the grief literature. You know, when I lost Becky, all the literature and all the books that people pushed at me said, "You gotta let go, you gotta let go," and that was traumatic for me. I did, or I tried to, and really had to come back around again to to bring Becky back where she needed to be in my life. With Susan, I never tried to let go, and I've kept her close, and that's inspired me, and it's given me a lot of hope because, we were exceptionally close. So I was with Becky too, and I'm just the kind of person, I think my work means a lot to me too, the kind of work I'm doing right now to help prevent financial exploitation of older adults. It just energizes me, and I just am a passionate person, and I think without feeling the guilt or depression that I did feel with Becky, I think that it really has enabled me to grieve, and it's very hard, but also to enjoy life and to have a lot of hope again.
I wondered have you heard of the Soaring Spirits Foundation?
No.
You might want to take a look at the Soaring. It's Michelle Neff Hernandez, and she is a widow, or was a widow. She's actually remarried, but she started the organization in memory of her husband who actually died jogging. Anyway, she has started the Soaring Spirits Foundation, and it's really interesting. It's Camp Widow, and you can blog and connect with widows and widowers online, and it's really quite wonderful. She's a great person. Well, I wanted to ask you, how do you keep the relationship with Becky and Susan together? I mean, how does that work for you when you've lost two loves, and how does that work for you in your mind?
Yeah, Susan was amazing that way, and this was really the testament to Susan, the kind of person she was. And she told me, look, Becky's not between us. I have all of you, and I know that you love Becky deeply, and that's part of why I love you so much.
Wow, that's
And
fabulous.
they were like sisters in her mind, and her favorite phrase to me was, look, Peter, I talk to Becky all the time trying to figure out how to handle you.
Oh, I like Susan. She was great.
She is great. She had a great sense of humor, and she was incredibly wise and able to be so mature about it. It's a shock to people. They really don't believe their spouse is going to die. Mm-hmm. It's just a death is such a shock still. And it says something about our society and our experiences, because people are just like, how could this happen? And I think that disbelief really is tough for people to get past a lot of times. Mm-hmm. Individual therapy can be very, very helpful, and sometimes augmented with a support group and things like that can be incredibly useful. I found it to be very helpful, and grief support groups, and I was in a the co-survivor support group before Susan died too. You have to ride the ups and downs of support groups. Some days you're like, why did I come? This is not helpful to me, and I feel terrible leaving. And other days you're like, oh my gosh, I learned so much today. So you have to ride the ups and downs and let those relationships with other group members come slowly.
If you love what he's been saying right now, you're going to find so much richness in the essay he wrote for Open to Hope. So you can go to opentohope.com and find Peter right online there. Well, Peter, thank you so much. Your wisdom is great, and really enjoyed the show. And your essay is amazing.
Thank you both so much for having me.
Yeah.
And thanks, everybody, for listening to this radio show today. And Heidi and I always want to remind you that if you've lost hope, please lean on ours until you find your own. And God bless.
You've been listening to Open to Hope Radio, hosted by Drs. Gloria and Heidi Horsley. Like today's edition, all of our past programs are available on demand at opentohope.com, along with helpful articles, videos, resources, and links to help get you through the toughest time of your life. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter and sign up for our monthly newsletter. Again, that's opentohope.com. Check it out today. Then be sure to stop by next Thursday at 9 a.m. Pacific Time, when we'll be posting another edition of Open to Hope Radio. Remember, others have been where you are. They made it through, and you can too, as long as you're open to hope.